Welcome to a new episode in our series Astrologies in Astrology. Today, with a very far distant guest, Aswin Subramanyan. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
And the first thing we have to do, and we had technical problems. This is why this is not as usual well prepared. So we go down here for the copyright. Um, I only have the right to publish the conversation today, uncut and unedited, on freely accessible video platforms, no paywalls. And on my homepages, my guest has the right to shorten, edit, or add to the MP4 file, which I will send to him via Swiss transfer or WeTransfer as he wishes, and to publish it on his websites and video platforms according to his liking. Is that okay with you?
All good with me.
You are okay with that. So we start again with the background, which is your mentor. In memory of my master, this is your master. Tell us about him.
So he's Gurmurti Iyer, born in August of 1937, and he died in March 2024. So he was 86 or close to 87. So so he started studying astrology when he was 18 or something. When from his bedridden father. So he was very frustrated because his father was trying to get him married by the age of 18. And he was very frustrated because he did not have a job at that point. So he just kind of applied in the employment exchange and was waiting for a job. So he was frustrated and having this argument with his father, who was reeling or fighting for his life in his last few days. And his father asked him to draw his chart on the board somewhere in that house. And this probably was in 1956 or something like that, 55-ish. So, so there was always a board in that house because his father used to kind of teach astrology to everyone who comes in. And so he asked my granduncle or grandfather to kind of go and draw his chart on the board. At that point, he did not know astrology. So the old man asked him to draw the chart on the board and said that like so and so planets are placed in so and so houses. And when your second house is active, by somehow you will get your job and you don't need to worry about it. And he said that the second house will be active when Mercury is active because Mercury was placed in the second house. And and during the time Mercury was active, he received his job offer. And within 6 to 8 weeks from the argument with his father, he got into a job. It's a government position, talking about um the telephones. He was in telephones, Indian telephones. So Mercury is ruling his third house and is placed in the second house. And third house is communication, and second house is income. So income from communication or something related to communication industry. So his father kind of taught him astrology like this. He started it like this. And surprisingly, to his disbelief, although the entire family was a family of astrologers, he was very astounded by the accuracy. Like Mercury was active, and suddenly there was a job offer, and he received the application or order to join the office. And this appeared within 6 to 8 weeks from this argument with his father. And that was the time he took astrology very seriously because something really substantial and tangible had happened. And since then, his astrological career was parallelly flourishing with his career as telephones operator, and he did not really charge money for around 45 years of his practice because he was a government employee. But once he retired from Indian telephones, he started taking money by donations. But he practiced for close to 65 years, if I'm
But
not
he
wrong.
gave the donations to the temple, right?
He gave the donations, all the donations that he got to the temple. There was a
So he so
nearby.
he so he followed the rule: if you are on a spiritual path and you convey spiritual content, you should not earn money with it. As what was that the background?
No, that was not the background. The background was that he had enough money for his survival.
Oh, okay.
He was having monthly pension, and he had a very close to the heart temple nearby, and he donated all the money to the temple where they used the money for monthly activity on the fourth lunar day
Oh, okay.
after every fortnight, after every lunation. So they used that money for that particular purpose, and he did it for a very long time, for 20 years maybe. And yeah, but he also acknowledged the fact that astrologers need money, and any form of service needs some kind of an exchange, and he believed in that. But it's just that he had enough money, and he was not necessarily in need of more extra money.
Okay.
So he decided to place a donation box um, somewhere where he would meet the clients, and the box would go to the temple every 15 days once.
Okay. And that was your teacher.
That was my teacher. So I learned astrology from him. I bought an astrology book in a book fair in January 2010, and the book, as usual, I was doing a master's degree at that point, and I was doing master's degree like 2,800 kilometers away from where I live, so it was very far away. So I came here for a vacation. I bought this book, left it at home, and then went back to Delhi to finish my master's degree. And I came back, uh, and then I took up the astrology book and started studying very casually and sporadically. But whenever I used to meet my grandfather and granduncles, I always used to have these conversations about astrology because of my curiosity. But my real test began after my father passed away in 2013, after which I really had a lot of time to spend with him. And that's when I started actually seeing clients. So people would walk in to my door, and my grandfather would see clients, and my grandfather would kind of give the astrology handbook, something like this. In India, every person who has a chart has a small booklet like this in which an astrologer manually writes the chart, and they keep this as a lifelong reference material. And even if their own families, every family has an astrologer invariably, except few. And even if their family astrologer is not available, or if that person is not doing astrology, whatever, for whatever reason, the booklet is always there, and they carry this booklet to some other astrologer, and that astrologer opens this booklet and sees and reads the chart, and delineates or answers the client's questions. So likewise, people entered my house, and my grandfather would just pass on the booklet to me, and he would ask me to read the chart, and I used to read the chart. And by this time, my only knowledge about astrology was talking and learning from my grandfather orally. There was no bookish tradition until then.
So basically, you
So,
are saying in your country with more than 1 billion people, astrology is deeply rooted in every family, except some exceptions.
except some, yeah, there is always exception.
Uh,
There
okay,
are,
so
yeah,
complete this, this is where you're living in Chennai,
yes,
which is in the southeast of India, and
correct,
up here is Mumbai for the viewers.
yeah,
Okay, um, now I want to continue with a problem which was raised by Robert Hand
yeah,
on a lecture he gave 2005 for the Astrological Association in the United Kingdom in York,
Mm.
and I highlighted the text here. Modern astrology has one really, he means Western astrology, has
Correct.
one really tragic flaw. In addition to its inarticulate language, its complete lack of a philosophical foundation rooted in any coherent philosophical or spiritual tradition of the world, except in the case of Jyotish, which we are talking about today, which is your profession. You are a Jyotish Vedic astrologer. Jyotish does have a coherent philosophical and spiritual background derived from the religions of India. For those of you that are not aware of it, Western astrology, by which I really mean Middle Eastern astrology, we just happen to be practicing the Western branch of it, also has a firm foundation in philosophy derived from persons with names such as Plato, Pythagoras, Aristotle, Plotinus, and Proclus, and has roots in other philosophies that we cannot attribute to any actual person, such as the philosophies of Hermes. And then he says to the audience in 2005, we have to go back to these philosophies, as I will hope to demonstrate in part tomorrow, because all modern Western philosophy, with the possible and likely exception of phenomenology, is born out of an idea set that occurs after the West made a fork on the road of philosophy and so on. Would you agree with that statement of Robert Hand?
So I don't know much of modern astrology, modern Western astrology, but I study traditional Hellenistic and medieval Persian astrology, which are not Western by any means. Um, and as Robert Hand, the scholar that he is, he rightly points out that the traditions that flourished in Hellenistic Egypt and that spread across the other parts of the ancient and medieval world, which turned out to be an extension called as medieval Persian or Islamic astrological tradition. So all these have really good philosophical basis and foundation.
Yes,
There is no doubt about it.
yes.
And same case with Indian astrology, which has a very deep philosophically rooted tradition.
And to make something
There's
very clear to the listeners, the Jyotish Vedic astrology in India has no breakdown during the centuries.
yes.
Whereas in Western Europe, after the Renaissance, there was a total breakdown of astrology around about starting at 1670, and it was revived in 1875 with Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society. So there's a big difference in the tradition of astrology, and as you have mentioned, every person, every family in India uses astrology. They have that booklet, they carry it with them. So that is a big difference in tradition. And in one talk of Professor Olomi, a Muslim professor at the west coast of the United States, a historian, a scientist, and a researcher in history, and he was talking about the unbroken tradition of the Abu Mashar Balkhi tradition as well. So in the Islamic world, if you go to Marrakesh, you can experience the same thing which you can experience in Chennai, in your town, an unbroken lineage of astrology, which is something which the Westerners in their arrogance try to negate. But coming back to your Chennai town, your family has a tradition of 400 years in astrology, is that right?
Yeah, around 300, 350 to 400 years. But before going there, you asked me a question whether I agree with Robert Hand. Yes, I do agree with Robert Hand.
Okay.
The reason why I agree with Robert Hand is based on my own understanding. I don't know if it is solid, but I believe that the modern forms of astrology that has its roots in the New Age movement, which was developed by Dan Ruthyar or Mark Edmund Jones or people like that, is based on this idea that man has complete power and free will. But this is I mean, everyone knows, like every realistic human being knows that man's powers and the extent to which man has control over his own life or the external circumstances is very, very minimal. And I don't mean to say that everything is fated or deterministic, but I lean towards something much more, important and significant, which I call it as evolution. And this is not the evolutionary astrology of the West, but this is evolution of understanding of the forces that are beyond our control, and man's power is limited. So there are some things that we can control and there are some things that we cannot. So to believe that I have complete control over my life and complete control over the external circumstances, and that I have this power to take charge of my life whenever I want, is a little bit of fantasy, and that's why I agree with Robert Hand.
And I do too. Um, Now, I have a little problem here. I do know something about the Neoplatonic philosophy, but you are an Indian astrologer, and your background, your cultural background is different from mine. Um, I assume you are not a Platonist. I assume you are grounded in the Indian belief systems, and there is a lot of different religious traditions in your country. Um, how would you characterize your belief system? Do you believe in a world soul as the Platonists do, or do you believe in a higher being as the one in the Platonist sense, or do you have a completely different belief system for your work?
I think we all kind of agree that in some ways, like we are all part of this one. The
Yeah.
one
So you
is
believe
where
in the highest one. So we are on the same
I
page.
believe that we are part of the one. I
Okay.
see universe as this one holistic phenomenon, and we are
Okay.
all part of that holistic phenomenon, and we are also that one, which pretty much is what Ptolemy implies to some extent, and
Okay.
which also, yeah.
Let me dig deeper here. Do you believe in something comparable to nous, the Greek nous, logos? Is there something in the Indian tradition comparable to the nous, logos?
The the entire Indian tradition is basically based on this idea of karma and reincarnation. I mean,
Okay.
only in relevance to astrology.
So
So what you're talking about,
you don't talk about logos and nous in your tradition.
there is reason, there is cause,
Okay.
and that is what we talk about in karma.
Okay, and for the rest of this problem, we refer the viewers to the internet, because if we continue here, we have 4 hours to talk about our
No,
different
but
philosophical backgrounds. But
I
you
mean
want
to
to
say
add,
that there is a parallel. So
yeah, that's
what you're
parallel.
talking about is stoicism, basically. So
Yeah,
uh, where there is always some kind of a divine cause
yes.
for everything that happens. So uh, an Indian tradition kind of touches upon the similar thing, where there is always a belief in a pattern. So I do something, and it immediately accumulates karma. So there is a
Oh, okay,
consequence for every action that I do, and once we make a choice, we are bound to the result, and
okay.
that is not fatalism. That is evolution.
Yes, I agree on that. So now let's go back to some more questions I have prepared before we start and dive into your homepages. Then I have a very special question, which is related to the town you are in, because I will have a talk with a German guy who organizes traveling to Chennai, to your town,
Mm,
and he knows Babu Sundaram, a palm leaf reader in Chennai, which is a
mm.
traditional palm leaf library in your town, 1200 years old. All I wanted to ask you is, do you know about these people, Babu Sundaram and his family?
You know, the place where I live, and at least 300, 400 kilometers surrounding this place, is full of history and palm leaves.
Ah,
So the person that he's referring to may be one of those persons, but Chennai is not the most famous place for palm leaf. The most famous place for palm leaf is around 250, 300 kilometers away from Chennai.
Okay, so Martin Gunston speaks about this of the palm leaves, but we don't have to talk about this more here. So now let's go into your biography outside of astrology, and then we come to your astrology. Now you have a homepage, and there is the Vita about yourself. You were born and brought up. We talked about that. And you received a Bachelor of Commerce degree in 2009. What college was that?
It was a it was in the University of Madras.
What? In Madras. Okay.
University of Madras, now called as, I mean, the university's name is Madras, but the city itself is renamed as Chennai. Chennai is the new name, and Madras is the old name. So
Okay.
I received my bachelor's degree from University of Madras.
Okay. And then you had a Master of Arts in Labor Management. No, wait a minute. Master of Business Administration in Finance 2 years later. Was that the same college?
No, it was in the north of India. So I went to the northern part of India to do my master's degree in Hisar. It's called the Guru Jambeshwar University of Science and Technology. It was in
What town was that in northern India?
Hisar.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't know. Okay.
I
And
mean,
then,
you can take it as New Delhi.
okay. New Delhi. Okay. Okay. Now, and then it says here, Master of Arts in Labor Management in 2018, which is quite later. What happened between 2011 and 2018? You worked in international investment banking from 2011, is that correct?
Yes, I mean, I was parallelly kind of seriously studying astrology, and by 2017, I already started giving talks.
Oh, okay. So there's a
Yeah.
parallel development, which we were
Yes.
talking beforehand. So one can say you are a banker, right? Originally.
Yeah, I have 15 year career in investment banking. I
Okay.
worked across many leading investment banks in the world.
And now let's look at your homepage a little bit more. Now, what can people get from you? They can book a session. Okay, there is the sky within. That is a deep exploration of your birth chart for around about $200. Then you have all these offerings. So you are doing basically the whole thing. You do electional. Do you already horror astrology?
No, no, no. I
Just
don't
electional.
yet practice for it. Yeah, it's
Okay.
electional.
And you have a one-to-one mentorship in in your program, and so on. And then you have books, and I will have some questions about Ferrari. We'll come back to that in a minute. But the second book is Astrology by Moonlight. What is it about this book? What is the content of that book?
The content of this book is basically an elaboration or an expansion of Dan Rudhyar's idea of solilunar phases. So Dan Rudhyar basically spoke about these 8 phases starting from the new moon to the full moon,
Okay.
but it was only from the sun to the moon. So what we did in this book is to expand the moon's relationship with all the planets, not just the sun.
Okay. And now come back to Ferrari. I have the book here. This is the book
Oh, cool.
we are talking about. Um, and I have a first question. When did you meet people like Anthony Lewis, Sharon Knight, Ben Dykes? Did you meet them personally or just by internet? All the people you mentioned. It's Sharon Knight and it's Stephen Birchfield, and you have a lot of videos with them on your on the playlist I showed before. You have contacts to Tanya Daniels, which is German astrologer, traditional astrologer living in Italy, Lars Panaro, and of course Anthony Lewis, who wrote the foreword, a very nice foreword for your book. How did you how did you got, let's put it this way, you were in Chennai, okay, you were a banker, you were studying, you were doing training with your grandfather, and you became a Vedic hyphen Jyotish astrologer. Someday in your life, you started to leave the Indian background and get in contact with the, let's say, United States, United Kingdom, Europe astrology. How did that came about?
I think the thanks to social media, the the very advent of social media platforms gave me enough scope to reach out to all these wonderful astrologers, whom I can today call friends very proudly. Um, and my association with all these people goes back to 8 years at least. And I have very special relationship with all those people that you mentioned, and I learned astrology from all these people. And I consider I never met Ben Dykes, but Ben Dykes is a single most reason why I do traditional astrology itself. Like without his translations, I won't be able to kind of study anything. So I'm deeply indebted to Ben Dykes. But the thing is, I never spoke with him. I only shared a few email exchanges with him, but I really have never spoken to him or never met him in person. I met Sharon Knight when I was in England, which was wonderful. I never met Anthony, who is also.
why did you go to why well when and why did you go to England?
I went to England to give two talks for the Astrological Association's annual conference in
About what? About what?
October of 2023, and my talks were one was on Firdaria,
Oh,
and
okay.
another one was
This
on
one?
the medieval, yes,
Okay.
and another one was basically on introduction to medieval mundane astrology, mundane astrology.
Okay. Did you take courses? I think you took a course with Sharon Knight. Uh, uh,
Sharon is my mentor. And as I told you, like Ben Dykes is basically a demigod to me. He's yeah, I can worship him because of only because of his translations. I've been able to study as much as I've tried to study.
yes, yes, I agree. I have a lot of Ben Dykes books myself, and this book you recommend very heavily to read parallel or in addition to Firdaria because there's more additional information. This is the fourth book of his Persian Nativity series. Um, now, did you take the course of Hellenistic astrology with Chris Brennan?
No, I have Chris Brennan's books.
Oh,
One book by Chris Brennan,
yeah, you read
and
his book.
I have
Okay,
all the translations. Basically, like I've studied translations because of the you know at that point I couldn't afford, and that's the reason why I said it was very important for me to have translations
okay,
and access to translations. So yeah,
and that
Ben Dykes is
gives.
a teacher I've never met.
Now, before we continue, I have a question to the culture of India. Um, you have a complete different society than myself in Germany. You have Varna and Jati. This is in English. It's caste case. How do you call this in English? These two names,
Caste and subcaste.
caste and subcaste.
Yeah.
Are you living in a caste? Is that something relevant for your personal life?
uh, I mean, everyone in India has a caste, so there is some kind of a division. And yeah, there is a. I mean, in modern days, the way people live is not very different, but the way we approach life or some of the habits and customs are different in terms of traditional aspects.
But how would you characterize the influence on your everyday life? How much important is the belonging to a caste in the everyday things?
It it, it is basically irrelevant.
Okay, okay. So now we just go to Martin Gunston, which is for you a very important partner in videos, and
Mhm.
he has published. Um, I have links here to some of his work, and he has a very important book, which is the Jewel of Annual Astrology, um, is an encyclopedic treatise on Jatachika. And Tachika
Tajika.
is something very important in the context of what astrology in India today is. As far as I understand it, didn't want to go back to this. As far as I understand it, Tajika is the Indian way of taking over Persian-Arabic doctrine. Is that about right?
That's right. So Tajika has its origins from medieval Persian astrology. And the work that you just showed before by Martin Ganston, the
Uh,
Joule of Annual Astrology,
yes.
is a complete translation of Balabhadra's Hayana Ratna. Hayana Ratna is a 13th century Sanskrit text that is based on uh, Arabic or Persian astrological texts.
And this took place for basically Tajika reception history is about 300 to 400 years in India. Is that correct?
Sorry, can you come back?
The reception history of Tajika, the contents of Persian and Arabic astrology
Yes.
coming to India from Baghdad and the Arabic
Yes.
countries. The history is it started around in 1300 something and it lasted a couple of 100 years before it was finalized in the doctrine of the Indian astrology, the Jyotish astrology. But it's still different. It's a separate portion. It's not totally integrated in Indian astrology, right?
Tajika is the annual predictive methods, and it is still followed. Like annual predictive methods are basically before that. I don't think there was an annual predictive method that was followed in Indian tradition. So, and also one more thing that I see a little differently than you is that the back and forth between India and Persia really began sometime around 8th century or something like that rather than 13th century. But I think uh, so there is a small link here, like one of the links, not the only link, around 800s or something like that, or maybe late 700s. There was an astrologer called Kanaka in India who traveled to this gathering or intellectual get together in Baghdad, and apparently he carried some Indian texts from here, and he went there, and that is probably one of the reasons why we see the some of the Indian influences in Abu Mashar's uh, text, especially
Okay.
in solar revolutions, where he uses the ninth parts as one of the alternate indicators of the year. And there are also a lot of Indian astronomical tables across the text. So that could be one of the reasons. And this could also have basically given rise to the movement of texts from Baghdad to India. So I think it was a cross pollination that was there at that particular point in time, which basically began this intellectual exchange between India and medieval Persia.
Okay. How far
And
how far does this go? Is Tajika in India nowadays 2025 today?
it
How,
is,
how many astrologers do not use Tajika?
it, it depends. I think if you consider like close to almost 50% of astrologers would most certainly use Tajika.
Okay. So now we are talking about percentage of what? Um, I believe
Annual predictive methods.
Yes, and I believe in India, the number of practicing astrologers doing readings for clients is a little bit more, to understate it profoundly. Would you say you have in Chennai, would you say you have more than 500 astrologers in Chennai?
There would be more than 25,000 astrologers in Chennai.
20? 20,000?
The
In your t-
20,000
in
or
your
20.
in your town, in your town.
Yeah,
So,
but it's a huge city. There are like 7 crores. I don't know what 7 crores amounts to. I think it will be 700 million or 70 million people here. Uh, I'm not sure, but 25,000 is a very small number. So, as far
so
as the Indian population
basically,
is concerned.
basically, we Westerners are dwarfs compared to Indian astrologer. We are like this in comparing to the giants of the Indian astrology.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. I think there are 70 million people in my city,
Okay.
and 25,000 astrologers is a very, very conservative number.
Well, even though, if you break it down in comparing it to Hanover with 500,000 inhabitants, it would still be something like 500 astrologers, and we don't have that in Hanover. So we are dwarfs in astrology, basically. And
Really.
nobody talks about this. And nobody talks about your tradition. Now let's go back to some questions I have prepared. Um, okay, we have this, we got this number. How many? I suppose the students number. Do you have how many students do you personally have today?
I uh, I teach primarily for my students are all from the West.
They are from
So
the West. Okay.
yeah, I teach. I mean, I have two batches of diploma, 1 year diploma in Indian astrology, and
Yes.
I have 22, 23 people in one batch and around 14 to 15 people in the other batch. So close to 40 people or 37 people studying with me
And we are
currently.
talking about your courses, which is this. So you have a lot of courses to offer where people can enroll. Is there, when will be the next enrollment? When will you start a new course?
Um, 2026, basically.
So they can enroll for that. Okay, let's go back to our questions. And I will come to your book in a minute because I have a real couple of questions about your book. Um, how many different astrology schools? In the West, we have the psychological astrology, we have the evolutionary astrology, we have the Hoover School, we have the Uranian, which means Hamburg School, and we have all sorts of different schools. Some people invent something every day. How many different schools traditions do you have in India and in Chennai?
Many universities have astrology as a course.
Oh,
So
is that still valid? I think the government of India forced the universities to reintegrate courses of astrology into the curriculum of universities. That is a couple of decades ago.
yes, so we have a lot of universities offering courses on astrology. And apart from that, there are a lot of private institutions, and thousands of institutions across India. So it's never a number that we can basically conclude it.
Are they as different as those Western schools I mentioned? Because the evolutionary astrology is totally different from the Hamburg school, and the Hamburg school is totally different from the Hoover school, and the psychological astrology is totally different from the traditional astrology of Sharon Knight. Are the
Yeah.
differences in India as large as they are here?
There are differences because there are some Nadi traditions. Nadi, in the sense, Nadi is a very common word used for astrological traditions that emerge from various regions. So, for example, the place where I live, there are two indigenous forms of astrological traditions that came up, and like that, there is a special Nadi tradition called as Chandrakala Nadi in Kerala, which is an adjacent province or state from where I live. So there are hundreds of sub traditions, and each kind of branched out as a separate school. So there is a lot of differences. But overall, if you think about it in terms of a very broad branch, there are only two branches. One is Parashari, and another one is Jaimini.
Okay.
Two branches.
And you did a course in the Yoga Samskrutam University. That's an American institution of higher education in Yoga Samskrutam. What is Samskrutam? What is that?
Sanskritam is Sanskrit.
Oh, that's Sanskrit. Okay. What did you learn there? Why did you
Vedanga Jyotisha.
why did you do it? You didn't need it, did you?
No, I just kind of wanted to enroll there to kind of see what a systematic learning can give me. That's one thing, and also I'm currently part of a PhD program. So my aim was always to try and do a PhD program, uh, which I'm currently doing, and I needed a degree in astrology.
Where will you do the PhD in what university?
I am doing a PhD in Yogic Sciences University, which is also in Florida. It's an Indic university in Florida, and
Why didn't you want to do a PhD with the Sophia Center in Lampeter in Wales?
it's not affordable for me.
Ah, okay, I can understand that.
It's
Well, that's a clear answer. So they should think about something about. Okay, now back to your book. On the preface on page 8, you say my primary Time Lord technique, we come back to more Time Lords in a second. My primary Time Lord technique was always Vimsotari Dasha. What is that in English?
it's one of the Time Lord systems.
An Indian, that's an
Uh,
Indian one. I haven't never
yeah,
came
no,
across
that's what I'm
an.
telling you. So Vimshottari Dasha is basically a 120-year cycle, which is a nakshatra based dasha system, and it is calculated based on the moon's position at birth. And each nakshatra, the 27 nakshatra, each nakshatra has a planetary association, and based on the position of the moon, we determine which planet will be starting the dasha rulership.
So you would start from this moon here.
Yeah, so for example, the moon is. Can you maximize? I cannot really see it properly.
Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, it's. So in which sign? I don't see.
That's
Can,
Virgo. That's Virgo.
and what is the degree? It's 24 degrees of Virgo, something like that. Okay. So whatever it is. So if the moon is placed in 24 degrees, so this tropical zodiac or sidereal zodiac?
This is tropical, but you can use it as a sidereal. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
okay. So the nakshatras in Virgo are one is Uttara Falguni from until 10 degrees, and then followed by that Hasta nakshatra, and then there will be
So you
Chitra.
count 120 years from this moon, right?
Yeah, 120 years from the moon. So, for example, if I mean, assume moon is placed in Chitra. So, Chitra is one of the nakshatras. It's called a Spika in Western astrology. So, if Chitra is associated with Mars, so if the moon is placed in Chitra during a person's birth, the person will begin with Mars's dasha. That means Mars will rule over for a specific amount of period in the person's life
So
to start with.
this is a very special Indian system for different periods, co- adding up to 120 years during the
Yeah.
whole life of the client.
Yes.
And then and then you add something to that. And now we're getting into your book because on the end of your book you describe how you work. And I read it for the viewers. Preparing for a client session. First, I cast the nativity, which we just saw. That was my nativity. Then you look at the sect of the nativity. Now, is sect nowadays in India a common approach, or is it your approach?
I follow the Hellenistic sect. In India, there is sect is not followed very commonly, but there is an Indian version of sect as well. It is called as it's used as part of strength analysis, but not in terms of division of chart by birth in terms of whether it is day or night.
Okay, so you look at the nativity, you look at the sect, which in my case is moon. Moon is my governing because I'm a night birth. Now, third, you find out the year of the perfection. Now, there are different perfections available.
Yeah.
And how many do you use? I
I
have, I'll just a second.
yeah.
I have a page here. No, this is not the one I wanted. Okay. There is perfection, moon perfection. This is the one. Okay, can you read that?
Yes.
Okay, now we are in 2025. In next month, I am on the 13th. I have the perfection from ascendant in Aries. I have the perfection of my governing moon in Capricorn. That is two perfections. And that
Yeah.
means we are now remembering you take the nativity, you look at the sect. Now you have at least two profections. How many profections do you use? Do you use only the one of the ascendant or of the governing sect ruler as well?
We can use it from the ascendant, sun, and the moon because there is an Indian technique called Sudarshana Chakra that that basically stipulates us to look at the profections from ascendant, sun, and the moon.
Okay,
But
so you have three perfections. Just to remember, we have the nativity, we have the sect, and now we have three additional perfections for every year. Then you mark the Lord of the year. Now, the Lord of the year, if you use three perfections, is a difficult task, isn't it? Which one is it?
it is. But in my book, I only refer to ascendant as a perfection
I
point.
know, but in your practice, you have three. Now,
Yeah,
if you take my situation in this year in December when my birthday comes up, even if I only use two, I could choose between Aries and Capricorn,
yeah.
which are quite different signs. Now, how do you decide who is the ruler of the perfection year?
No, can you come back again? I just did not catch what you asked.
Okay, we have the nativity, then we have the sect, and then we have at least two perfections. In my case, I would use ascendant perfection and the perfection of my moon because my moon is my sect ruler. Okay, so I have two basic starting points. Now, when you say on the
Yeah,
next line on the number four, you mark the Lord of the year.
yeah.
Let's
So you
let,
have at least two Lord of the Years because you're
I have
perfecting
Saturn.
from
I have
the
Saturn and
ascendant
Mars.
and you have from your sectile. So for ascendant, I would look at what I can basically feel or see tangibly, and with the sectile, I would see in terms of where it takes me in terms of my position in the external world or the external circumstances.
Okay, let's stay, and then we come to number five. I highlight the sign of the year. What's the difference of the Lord of the year and the sign of the year?
Sign of the year, the house or the sign that is active by perfection.
Okay, and then number six, I find out the father and the participator. Now I have prepared that as well because I have got my father here. Okay, the father is, I am in the father of my moon at the moment since 2024. And the participating father, according to your book, is your book would be different because you would add the
Yeah,
notes at the end. But for the beginning of the father, it's not important. So I have the moon, and now I get after the moon, I get the moon Saturn in 2026. So that
right.
would correspond to your line of six. I find out the father and the participant. Now, what we have here is we have a perfection of Aries and Capricorn. So we have Mars and Saturn. Now, on the father side, we have the moon. And then next year, the Saturn comes additional to it. Okay, for the viewers, this is number six. We have 11 points here. How do you manage to come to a conclusion what will be happening if you have so many input, so much input? And
The
they are different inputs. It's Mars, it's Saturn, it's Moon, and we are not finished yet. We are in number six. We're coming to other. Okay, let me ask you this way: you are a Hellenistic astrologer as well. Do you complicate and add to the complexity the zodiacal releasing as well?
it depends. Like I don't use the same technique for every session.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
so my primary technique is Vimshottari Dasha, the Indian time lord system, and the other technique is basically the calling of the chart, like whatever the chart demands. So, so it I don't really decide on which technique that I will use before going to the session, except that I will use Vimshottari Dasha for sure.
So I give you an impression of what happens to me this year. After what we talked about, and it was always my chart. Now we have the zodiacal releasing, and there we have the Cancer again. because the Cancer level 1 is enduring till 2028. And right at the moment, my zodiacal releasing has Aquarius. Now we get Saturn again. Now this is just the zodiacal releasing for the fortune, and now I show you the spirit, which is all happening at the same time to me at the moment. And we have there we come Capricorn again, and that means what I'm trying to convey is, and to make it more complicated even further, then we have the Dodecatemoria, the 12 parts. Now the Dodecatemoria is this. This is my Dodecatemoria. You can't see that, I suppose. The Dodecatemoria is this. So I have a lot of different information. My ascendant, for example, is in 324 Sagittarius. We just do as it was sidereal so that you don't have to change your mind. But let's put it this way. I have a Dodecatemoria on my ascendant, which is Capricorn. Now, what I want to come to a conclusion in my talk with you is, it's all happening at the same time to me. And I'm not a practicing astrologer, so I am not in the need to have a method to come straight to an answer for the client. I am sitting here having lots of hours available to me, and all I realize it, if I use the Dodecatemoria, which Manilius and Firmicus Maternus are stressing, if you don't use them, you're not an astrologer. Now, to pause here, would you agree with Manilius and Firmicus Maternus and the Arabs that the Dodecatemoria, the 12 parts, is a very important information? They even say that the Dodecatemoria gives you a complete insight into the client. Would you go as far as that?
Sure.
But that
Yes.
means we are talking about a sort of complexity. A psychological astrologer in the West has no, he doesn't know anything about that.
There is no complexity. I'll break this down. It's very simple. So you, all we need is the perfection. And for the year, if you know the sign or house, sign equal to house, because I use whole sign houses. So if
Yeah,
sign is
I
equal to
do too.
house,
I use whole sign
yeah.
houses, yes.
So we use a house and sign, and the sign is active, and there is a planet that will be that will kind of weave the primary theme or flavor
Which is the
for
rule,
the entire
which
year,
will be the ruler of
which is
that
the
house.
ruler of the
Yes.
house or sign,
So basically,
right?
you're saying if I have a perfection like I have with from the ascendant in Aries, it gives the governments the prime minister of that year will be Mars, right?
Mars. And more importantly, we should look at which house it is, like which house does Mars rule.
Yes.
So Mars has two rulerships. For example, for Scorpio rising, Mars rules first house and the sixth house. So it brings the themes of the first house and the sixth house. And if the sixth house is active, and the themes of the sixth house will be prominent. If the first house is active, themes of the first house will be prominent, and all these will have Martian flavor. And if you want to go far and look at uh, the 12th part of Mars, we have a hidden layer that is not necessarily explicitly seen outside. So I think that just goes off and gives us an additional information as to where Mars is placed by 12th parts.
So the Mars is placed in Gemini, and the perfection is the fourth house. So basically, we can cut it short here. Basically, you are saying there will never be a human being, and there will never be an artificial intelligence, no less, who would be able to understand the complete picture in the last detail of what you can get out of astrology if you use the old methods, right?
I think we'll have enough methods to help a client. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
So there is
I
no
agree on
lack
the
of,
I agree on the helping the client. But what
yeah.
I am interested in is the theory of astrology, and I think what we just realized, just showing the different input you
It's
can get,
endless.
it's endless. It's
You
extremely endless.
you just take Abu Mashar. Abu Mashar gives 9 or 10 alternative indicators for the year,
Yes,
the solar revolutions, and that is and what I give in my book is only 2 or 3,
yes.
and even that I put those in a very tabular format where people can just follow, print the chart, and you follow those 10 or 11 steps, and you can go into a client's session. But there are multitude, endless things that we can actually study from traditional astrology. And
That is what I'm talking about. Now,
yes.
would you agree with me that what we are talking right now about the endless complexity of the real astrology in your tradition, adding Tajika and Hellenistic, not talking about psychological, they may do what they want to do. They don't even know that there is something like Dodekatemoria. They don't even know that perfections exist. They don't even know whatever else technique we both use. They don't even know that the name of it. There is a real strange behavior in the psychological astrology scene, not wanting to know. That is my impression. What is your how do you look on the psychological astrological communities in the West, which is not something in India relevant, I believe. Is psychological astrology in your country relevant?
No.
Not really. So basically, how do you see the astrological communities in the West restricted
No,
to those who do not
I
use
just
our methods?
I just want to have one more clarification. The reason why Western psychological astrology is not relevant in India is because Jyotish can handle everything.
I
That's
know
the simple thing.
they have a psychic approach. Yes, I know.
And traditional astrologers can also do what psychological astrologers do
Yes,
because
I
there
totally
are
agree.
tools.
Yeah, yeah. I
Ptolemy
totally agree.
is the
Yeah,
answer. Ptolemy
yeah.
is the key for that. So I think the times are changing slowly because of the the translations that are coming in, the courses by Chris Brennan or Ben Dykes or Adam
Adam
Ellenbach also
Ellenbach as
teaches.
well. Yes, Adam Ellenbach
He
is
also
very
teaches
important.
Hellenistic astrology, and there are many other astrologers who teach traditional astrology. And I think that is creating some kind of a change where people are going back to the traditions
How
and
far are we?
inculcating.
How far are
uh,
we into that
I think we have
change?
just started.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Brennan and Ellenbach are the spear bearers, and that okay, spear bearers. Do you use spear bearers in your practice, the Dorifori?
Dory for, yeah, it's an amazing technique.
Because
I use it
I
from.
have it in my chart. My moon has two spear bearers, moon and Saturn.
Good for you.
And nobody
you know,
delineates it. Nobody
gods
knows
of
about it. It's a 500 thick book in German about Dorifori from Susanne Denningmann, but nobody knows about that book. And
You're very lucky because you have a 500-page book that only talks about spear bearers, guards of the chart. They're called the guards of the chart.
yes, I know. Yeah.
And it the spear bearers talks about eminence in the chart. A person who has a spear bearing positions in angles, basically the person can rise to very high levels in life. So I
But
think you have this
I
Saturn
really
and Sun.
yes, I have Saturn and I have Mars and Saturn spare bearers for the moon, according to Susanne Denningmann. Would you agree with her? It was a dissertation, a PhD paper she wrote about the Dorifori, and in her book I have it, but some people say I don't. How would you see it? Is this a Dorifori for my moon or not?
I don't think, because I think Paulus of Alexandrinus and also Hephaestion of Thebes talk about spear bearers from angles and also from the trines as second powerful and sextiles as the third powerful. I'm not sure if they list conjunction as one of them. So for me, I don't think it is a spear bearing.
Okay, so you have a difference to Susanne Dennemann because she's my German writer. I stick with her because I like my spare beers. I keep them.
Yeah, I think it's a very less explored area. Martin Hermes has a wonderful video on spear bearing. If anyone is interested, it's amazing traditional astrology from Netherlands. But I think It's a very good technique. It has its origins in Hellenistic tradition.
Yeah.
Hephaestion of Thebes mentions it, and I think Paulus of Alexandria also mentions about it, and I think Rhetorius also does. And it's also there in Ben Dykes' translations of
Yes.
Masha Allah. Uh, yeah, it's there everywhere in traditional
Would you
astrology.
do you yourself do the same thing what I do with myself, with all those input, with all this endless complexity? Do you ever do this for yourself, or don't you have the time for that?
No, I mean, researching astrology is the better part of what I do on a daily basis because without that, we cannot grow as astrologers. And
Okay.
but my work is I don't do it with my chart. I just kind of test it with a lot of other charts.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. So you don't dive into your own thing every year. Okay.
yeah, I don't just stick to my chart because I feel it limits my exposure and learning experience. I try to
Okay.
go with a lot of other charts.
Did we cover what you're doing sufficiently? Did I miss to
Yeah,
ask something important?
no, I think we covered everything. I think it's your show, and I'm happy to kind
No,
of
no.
comply with whatever you
If
want
you
to
want
ask.
to add something, I'm glad to continue.
I don't.
I was just trying to paint a picture of an Indian astrologer whose practice is extremely different from what we know from the Western astrologers. Did I reach that goal?
I think so. Very good.
Okay. So basically, you don't want to add something which is important for yourself.
For me, I mean, talking about my current work, my a lot of my time goes for teaching
Okay.
and writing
Okay.
and my YouTube videos. I do some YouTube videos,
Well, I have
and
a
also
playlist of your videos, which are very. We can dive a little bit into your in my playlist because there is some very interesting information there for the viewers. Okay, I prepared. This is my playlist. This is from the videos of our guest. There's an historical video which I found very interesting. Then we have the cultural transmission with Martin Gunston, I believe. And there's Martin Gunston. But what I wanted to show, there's some very interesting. If the viewers see this type of design, that's always a talk with somebody from the West about their life. Here you talk with Stephen Birchfield and Anthony Lewis, and here you talk with Anthony Lewis again, and then you have Deborah Holding, the leader of the School of Traditional Astrology. Then you have Sharon Knight, your mentor. You have one with Martin Hermes. And here is one recent talk with Sharon Knight on the beach of, that was, where was?
Eastbourne.
Eastbourne, right? Does she live there now?
Yeah.
Ah, she moved then. Okay, then we have other interesting videos. It's quite a number, but what I wanted to show the viewers is a series about Vettius Valens, episode 1 till 12. Why did you do that?
It was basically an exploration of Hellenistic tradition, trying to read through Hellenistic tradition and understand some of those techniques. So
And then,
we thought it would be a good introduction for people.
yeah, and the same you did with the sect in Vedic astrology, whereas you mentioned in our talk that the sect is still a developing country in your astrology in India, right?
Yeah, but sect, what we talk about is using the Hellenistic sect in Indian astrology.
Yes, but as you said today,
Yeah.
sect is something some do in your country, but they have to
No, it is
be
used as
informed.
a strength identifier of a planet.
Yes, okay.
It's so it's not used as a differentiation of day birth and night
Yes,
birth.
yes. Which is very important in your practice because if you have if you use sect, as Robert
Yeah.
Hand promotes as well, the chart delineation changes dramatically if
Sure.
you use it. Okay, something else we should talk about?
Yeah, I think if you want, m- my main focus points at this point are like my courses, and
And your PhD, what is the title of your dissertation? What are you going
uh,
to do?
integrating and finding the similarities and dissimilarities between Indian Hellenistic and medieval Islamic astrological traditions,
So you are doing a dissertation on what we talked about.
basically.
That's nice. I have to read
So,
it.
and yeah, I think my YouTube channel, my courses, my and also my weekly letters. I send
Yes.
letters with
Yeah.
elections, and I also explain a philosophical text in one of my sections.
Do you want
And
to answer a private question? Are you married? Oh, you
yeah,
don't
I am
have
married. I have a son.
you have a son, okay, and you're living
I'm
together.
married. Yeah, I'm living with my wife, my son, and my mother, my
And
mother-in-law.
your wife
In
is
India,
work
it's very common.
and your wife is working as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
my wife is working.
So you're well established now in Chennai, in the
Sure.
southeast of India, doing your courses, working on your PhD. When will your PhD be finished? 5 years?
God knows.
5 years is realistic, I suppose.
5 years, I think it's due next year.
Oh, it's due.
If
You have to deliver?
I have to deliver, but I can extend.
Okay. Okay, so basically, I think we had a nice talk. Do you agree?
I'm sure. Thanks for
And
having me. It was great.
and I hope the viewers learned something they didn't know about beforehand. So thank you that you took the
Thank you.
time from the viewers and from myself. And I will stop the recording. Danke fürs Vorbeischauen und auf bald.